There are different forms of grief that we need to be attentive to. So the first form is individual grief. That's what each of us feels individually. You may be grieving a friend, you may be grieving a family member, you may be grieving an experience. And this is personal, this can be very, very painful. We also have something called collective grief, where we as individuals together as a community grieve. It may be grieving the fact that we cannot celebrate events like we used to. It could be grieving the fact that you can't go out. It could be grieving with friends and family about the life experiences we have, the lack of access, the lack of safe spaces. This is collective grief. When you consume social media and you're reading all the negative stuff or just media in itself, collective grief can be very overwhelming. And sometimes you're quite shaken up about the fact that we even feel collective grief, right? Now, the reason I'm starting with this is because it's also important to pay attention to while we're feeling collective and individual grief, are we taking the third form of grief on, which is anticipatory grief? Anticipatory grief is when we expect something to happen. What if we get COVID? What if tomorrow someone dies? What if this happens to my family? What do I do then? Now, the problem with this is that the event hasn't yet happened, but we put so much pressure on ourselves. We're grieving even before the event has happened. And that can take a toll on us mentally, emotionally, and physically. Be aware of this. Be cognizant of the fact that you are a person who is grieving. But if an event hasn't yet happened, don't put pressure on yourself to imagine what could happen. Be mindful. Say that if it hasn't happened yet, it hasn't happened. And if it should happen, I will deal with it when it happens. Try some mindful activities, use your mindful resources, and this is a time to bring it back to the present. If it hasn't happened, it hasn't happened. I do want to touch upon a few more forms of grief. One is prolonged grief, which is grief that happens over time. For example, let's say if you've lost a family member and you find out that a friend has lost a family member, and then you read online that someone else has lost a family member, you may feel overwhelmed because it seems like your grief is being prolonged. To a large extent, that's an indicator that you haven't yet dealt with your own grief. This is when I'd say, please reach out to a professional because they will help guide you through the stages of grief. They will hold that space for you and take you through modalities that will actually work for you. And while you're experiencing that, it's also important to realize that sometimes you experience delayed grief. Our forms of grieving have changed given the COVID scenario. A lot of us are unable to go for cremations. We are unable to attend funeral services. We have something online or we're watching the services online. And it takes away the essence of actually being present. And that level of grief may not hit you in the moment because it feels so impersonal. But when you actually feel it, it's okay to feel it later. It's okay to not feel it in this moment. Remind yourself that this doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you are dysfunctional. It just means in this moment, it hasn't hit you. You may be in the shock phase, you may be in the denial phase, and these are phases of grief. And it's okay to be there. But when you're ready, you will catch up. And like I said, if you need professional help, because grief is complex, regardless of who and what you are grieving, even if you're grieving your identity, it is complex. It's okay to ask for professional help. There is no shame in reaching out and having someone be there for you and hold that environment where you can actually share what's going on with you. So I hope you do reach out. I hope you do allow yourself to get that help and create supportive, safe spaces for you and your family. Because when you start healing, your family heals with you, even if it doesn't feel like it at first. In the long run, when one person starts the cycle of healing, it invariably affects the others and they heal too. Say there's no right or wrong time to reach out for professional help. You don't have to be experiencing massive overwhelm to reach out. Please reach out at any time. The beauty of professional help is that we are trained to look after you. We are trained in modalities to be supportive, to understand you, and work with you to take you to your healing. It is a safe, comforting environment. It's non judgmental. Everything you say is confidential. So please know that there is no right or wrong time to reach out. Whether your 6-year-old needs help or someone in their 80s needs help, there are people who are willing to listen and people who are willing to offer support. All you need to do is get over the overwhelm of the stigma that society puts on it and maybe your own personal stigma and allow yourself to reach out. Personal therapy can go a long way in actually enhancing your mental health. We are not just SOS services. We are also working to enhance mental and emotional availability, mental and emotional strength and well being. So, whatever it is you need, please know that it's never too late to reach out for help. However, if you are overwhelmed by the idea of therapy, there are lots of resources out there that can help you. We also have workshops and different sorts of ways that people can access mental health. You can dip your toes in it, see what works for you, but allow yourself to reach out and connect. Worst case, talk to friends, talk to family. They may not be trained, but at least speak about what you're going through. Because when you start talking about your experience, that much of overwhelm reduces because it's no longer inside of you, right? Allow yourself to let it out, allow yourself to talk about your experiences and know that you are safe and you are held. So don't wait till it's too late. Reach out and let yourself connect.